Hi everyone, and welcome to this next video on the public cloud series. So in our last session we understood what exactly is SAP S/4HANA public cloud, how it is different than the private cloud and the on-premise system. And in this particular video I will explain the SAP S/4HANA public cloud related to the finance domain. Right, so we will go through the different options which are available, different features which are available within SAP S/4HANA Finance in public cloud. So I will start with this process navigator screen. If you don't know how this screen to be reached, you can use this link, that is me.sap.com process navigator, which will take you to this particular link, and here you will be able to see the best practices which are available from SAP in terms of the private cloud and the public cloud edition. So since our focus in this video is on public cloud, I am opening this SAP best practices for S/4HANA Cloud Public Edition. Now here you will be able to see all the different scope items which are provided by SAP in public cloud. Right, so if you go down, you'll be able to see what are the different lines of businesses supported in public cloud. So you can see application platform and infrastructure, asset management, finance, human resource, IT, sales, sourcing and procurement. So all the core modules which we were using in on-premise and private cloud are supported in the SAP S/4HANA public cloud also. Now, if you want to focus on the finance part, I will just click on this finance area, and you will see that all the scope items which are related to finance, they will appear here. Right, you can see, for example, the most important ones like accounts payables, accounts receivables. You'll be able to see general ledger accounting, you'll be able to see asset accounting, bank account management. So whatever different areas or whatever different scope items are supported within the finance domain, you'll be able to see the list of all those scope items. Now, what is the idea, like why exactly the scope items are provided and how we can use the scope items when we are implementing the SAP S/4HANA projects, not only in public cloud but in private cloud also. So SAP provided this best practices so that instead of starting from scratch, whenever you are implementing SAP S/4HANA for the customer, we can start with the best practices which are already provided by SAP. So if you remember, in SAP Activate methodology, there is a phase. In the explore phase, we conduct the fit to standard workshops, right, in which we also call the show and tell workshops, in which we are going to demonstrate the best practices which are already pre-delivered from SAP to the customer, and we are going to take the feedback from the customer whether the standard best practices are fitting in the requirements of the customers or not. In case if the best practices are finalized, if the best practices are working for the customer, in that case that is called as a fit. But in case where there are some additional requirements which are not already covered under the SAP best practices, those are considered as gaps, and we need to work on those gaps. We need to go for the extensibility options in order to ensure that those gaps are also filled. Now, as I told you, this works in both private cloud as well as public cloud. We should normally start with the best practices. So just to take as an example, when we are conducting the fit to standard workshops, at that time we are going to demonstrate the end-to-end business process for the particular scope item. For example, in the discover phase or in the prepare phase, if we finalized that customer wants to go for accounts payable process, in that case, in the explore phase, we are going to show them the end-to-end accounts payable process, how it works in the SAP S/4HANA system. So in order to find it out, like how the standard best practice process is delivered from SAP, we can use the scope items. So just take an example of accounts payable. I will click on this accounts payable. As you can see here, within accounts payables, SAP has provided a lot of content. You can see SAP has provided the process flow diagrams on how the accounts payable process works in case of SAP S/4HANA public cloud. We can use this process flow diagrams during our workshops to explain the customer how exactly the accounts payable process is delivered from SAP. And then we can also make the use of these accelerators. If you look at these accelerators, there is a test script. that this test script is nothing but the end-to-end business process, which are the different Fiori apps within accounts payable, what is the data that you need to enter in each and every app. For example, how to maintain the supplier master data, how to process the invoice with purchase order, without purchase order, how to make the different type of payments to the suppliers, how to make the manual payment, how to make the automatic payment, how to do the clearing. The end-to-end process related to accounts payable is provided under this test script. So if you open this test script, it will be open in the Word document, and if you open this particular document, it will have the step-by-step process on how to execute the entire accounts payable process within S4HANA system. So this document is downloaded now, and you can see this is the accounts payable document, and you can see the this is for the country German. Okay, D stands for Germany. So for each of the countries, or most of the countries, SAP has provided the best practices, because every country has their own localizations. And if you look at this test script, you will be able to see some of the very important information. You can see first of all the roles. Okay, it is very clearly explained what are the roles required in order to execute the accounts payable process, right? So if you go to the roles section, you can see these are the different roles which are pre-delivered from SAP, and we need to assign these roles to the different users so that they can carry out their day-to-day activities. And then if you come down, you'll be able to see the there is some pre-delivered data, like SAP has already provided some master data, some organizational data. For example, whenever you are conducting the fit to standard workshops, you don't need to spend a lot of time on creating the data which you are going to use during your show and tell sessions. You can directly use this data in order to demonstrate the best practices. Right. Similarly, if you come down, you'll be able to see the end-to-end processes. So let's start with, okay, these are all prerequisite settings that needs to be done or which are already maintained in the system. Okay, and from here onwards, from test procedure onwards, you'll be able to see the business processes. Okay, starting with maintaining the business partners. Why we need to maintain the business partners? It is nothing but to create the vendor master records. So it will explain you which are the Fiori apps which we are going to use in order to create the vendor master data. You can see there is an app, there is a Fiori app which is manage supplier master data, right? So this app will be available to the user who has the proper role, and you can see here itself it is clearly written that master data specialist role is required to be given to the user in order to access this particular app, right? So step by step you can see the values also are provided for the test purpose. You will enter all this data, and you can also use the same format, this test script which is provided by SAP during your UAT phase also, so that the users can fill this information whether the test was resulted in pass or fail, or if there are any comments. Now, depending upon the best practices, how are we going to execute those best practices? How are we going to maybe during the show and tell workshops, you will be using some test system in order to show how exactly these best practices are executed. And even when the business users are going to start doing their UAT, or maybe they are going to use the actual Fiori apps in their production system, so they will be getting the link like this, right? They will be getting the link like this. This is a link which is connecting to the public cloud system, because remember, we don't have the SAP GUI option in public cloud. We will not be able to use the old GUI concept. SAP public cloud only works on Fiori. So for each of the system, for your starter system, for your development system, quality system, production system, you'll be getting a separate link. Okay, obviously you'll be having your user ID and password, based on which you'll be connected to this kind of environment, which is the Fiori launchpad. Now once you are here, depending upon what is your role, right? So for example, you can see as of now with my user ID, I am able to see the roles, the applications related to general ledger accounting, and the Fiori applications which are related to accounts payables. But now let's assume that you are the accounts receivable user or you are an asset accounting user, then your user ID must be assigned to the proper business roles, right? And obviously, similar to on-premise or private cloud, the authorization team is responsible to provide the necessary authorizations. But since I'm in the test system, I'll just show you how exactly those are also managed. So if you go to this default space, you'll be able to see maintain business users. Obviously, if you have the access to this app, then only you can control this, but otherwise in the real-time environment, this is controlled through the security and authorization team. So if I go to maintain business users, here you can see all the different users which are created in this system are displayed. So based on my user ID, let's say this is my user ID and I want to provide my user ID the roles related to accounts receivables maybe. So I'll copy this user ID, enter here in the username, and then I'll be able to see whatever different business roles are assigned to my user ID. As you can see, as of now, my user ID is assigned to accounts payable, general ledger accountant. But if I want to change this, if I want to provide some additional roles, now again, these roles, some of the roles which you are able to see here are the standard roles which are pre-delivered from SAP, and there can be customized roles which can be created in order to provide the right authorizations to different business users. So for example, I want to provide the accounts receivables related. Role to my user. You can see these are the different roles which are related to accounts receivables. Whatever is relevant, for example, I'm going ahead with the standard one, which is BR underscore AR underscore accountant. And then if I proceed with this, okay, let me select this and click on, is it showing? Let me select this, yeah, and click on apply. Okay, and save. So you can see now this role has been assigned to my user ID, which means if I go back to my home page, if I go back to my Fiori launchpad, okay, and as of now you can see it is still showing general ledger and accounts payable because it is not yet refreshed. So if I refresh this, you should be able to see the new role which is added to my user ID, accounts receivable, must be also available. Okay, let's see. You can see now accounts receivable roles has been added. So depending upon who is the user, what all roles required to be given to the user ID, according to that you need to provide the rules. One important thing, in the best practice documents, it is also provided like which Fiori app will work under which standard role, right? So it will make a life easy for the consultant initially when you are conducting the fit to gap workshops or when you are performing the UAT. You don't need to like spend much time on finding out the roles. Those roles are very well available in the best practice documents. Now let's assume I want to perform the accounts receivable or let's say accounts payable related transactions. So within accounts payable, again depending upon, as I told you, in accounts payable also there are different roles. So this role is having the access to these different groups. Okay, these are different groups, and within each group you will be able to see different Fiori applications. Okay, for example, let's say I want to process the invoice, right? You can see create supplier invoice. There are additional Fiori apps like import supplier invoices, upload supplier invoices, right? So it is not necessary that the public cloud system will have only those apps which are available in the classic GUI. Not necessary. It is not like each and every transaction code in the private cloud or on-premise system will have only one Fiori app. There can be multiple Fiori apps which are supporting a single transaction that we were using in the old screen. So there is no one-to-one relationship between the old GUI transaction and the Fiori screen. Okay, so this is how you'll be able to process depending upon what is your role. Accounts payables has a lot of different activities to be performed. Accounts receivables also have a lot of different activities to be performed. So again, making sure that in public cloud we only have the Fiori screen in order to process the day-to-day transactions. Now coming to the most important thing for us as a consultant. So as a consultant, most of the time we work on the configurations. And in case of private cloud, on-premise, we were still using SPRO. There were only few apps which are allowed to be configured through Fiori, but in public cloud, we don't have SPRO option. So all the configurations that you need to do, they need to be done via Fiori only. Okay, and for that, SAP has provided a tool called as Central Business Configuration. Let me log into the Central Business Configuration. This tool will allow you to do the configurations for all the different modules, not only for finance. This tool, like SPRO, will allow you to do all the configurations that you want to do in all the different modules, right? So again, there is a sequence of activities that needs to be followed. So there are a lot of technical activities, for example, assigning the deployment target, defining the scope. I'm not covering all these things in detail here, but similar to SPRO, you will be able to see this last activity, which is configure your business process, in which you will be able to see the screen, which is similar to the SPRO screen that we were able to see. But again, it is not one-to-one mapping. It is not like everything in SPRO will be available in public cloud. There are a lot of restrictions. There are less flexibility. You can say there is not much flexibility. For example, in case of private cloud on-premise, we have the flexibility to create our chart of accounts. But in case of public cloud, we need to follow the pre-delivered chart of account, that is YCOA. Similarly, controlling area is also pre-delivered by SAP, and we only need to follow that controlling area. We don't need to create our own controlling area. So like this, there are some restrictions in public cloud. Okay, there are some configurations which cannot be done. They are already pre-delivered and we just need to use it. Apart from that, you will be also able to set up the organization structure from here. Right, so there are two important setups which we need to do through Central Business Configuration. One is specify the primary finance settings. So this is where we are going to specify the default fiscal year variant and group currency. Now you remember, in case of private cloud or on-premise, we have the flexibility. We can assign any fiscal year variant, any group currency, sorry, not group currency, but any fiscal year variant to our company codes. So different company codes can have different fiscal year variants. But here in public cloud, we can only follow one single default fiscal year variant, which needs to be assigned to our all the company codes. And similarly, the group currency also we need to set up here itself. Whatever group currency we will assign in this step, that would be the group currency which will be assigned to all the company codes. Okay, then setting up the enterprise structure from finance perspective, from logistics perspective, everything can be done from here. Okay, maybe the last step for today. If you go to the configurations, you'll be able to see the similar screen, similar to SPRO, but again, as I told you, it is not exactly SPRO. Okay, maybe I will refresh this. Okay, you can see please wait while data is being loaded. So this is where we will be able to see the different activities which can be configured from the different modules perspective. Right, you can see from sales perspective, this is similar to the SPRO screen. Okay, if you go to finance, in finance it is divided into 2-3 different parts. So you can see in accounting, you'll be able to see the general ledger accounting and asset accounting. In payables and receivables management, you'll be able to see accounts receivables and accounts payables. Okay, and treasury and FSCM is completely different. So I hope this was just a high level overview session. I hope you understood how the finance processes works in public cloud system. How are you going to execute the end-to-end business processes? And very importantly, as a consultant, how are we going to do our configurations? So this was a very high level understanding, but if you are really interested to learn this completely, if you want to learn most of the areas within finance, which includes your general ledger accounting, accounts payables, receivables, asset accounting, credit collection, disputes management, all these topics we covered in detail in one of the batch that we executed a few months back, and the recordings, the video courses are available on our portal. So if you really want to learn all those new things, you can definitely subscribe to that video based course, and you can definitely ask whatever questions or clarifications that you want.